Good evening. Got a late edition of the show. Today was pretty busy, had a lot of work stacked up, and it's nighttime out there. I can hear the katydids going in the trees. I want to thank everybody that posted their location in Wednesday's video. I noticed we had a cluster of people around Tucson, 4 viewers there. Also, pretty widely distributed viewers throughout New York, Ohio, Texas, Washington. Pretty good representation around the country. And if you have not posted your location in the comments, feel free to do so. I'm definitely curious where everybody is located. Let's head right to the surface map. There it is, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern. Yeah, we've definitely got a late program here. A cold front. This is the one we talked about a couple days ago, working through the northern plains and the northern Rockies, and that's going to have a big influence on the weather across much of the south central U.S. and the Midwest this weekend. Pretty good push of cold air behind that. You can see 40s, 50s, and with that, a 1025 millibar high across Alberta. The monsoon still going there in Arizona. We've got numerous cells throughout Tucson, Safford up to the Mogollon Rim, and another cluster up near Kingman and just northwest of Phoenix. The cold front back behind it definitely stirring things up. We've got elevated cells from Cedar City up to just north of Fallon, and some hefty thunderstorms going out on the Sierra Nevada, around Bishop, up towards Lake Tahoe and down to China Lake. In the eastern U.S., it is quiet. 60s and low 70s, so a fairly mild evening, and that's due to a old polar high that's just sagging south and modifying. There's the leading edge of that front, and that's producing a few showers and storms, especially around Atlanta.
Southern level 3, we're 9 for 8,000. Whoops. I'm not comfortable being the first one, We're painting some pretty good storm activity here around you.
Meanwhile, in Minnesota, we have a full-fledged MCS in the northwest part of the state. A couple of tornado warnings in effect, and those are for the possibility of QLCS tornadoes and embedded vortices. Could be a bookend vortex right there in the northern part of that MCS. And the rest of it looks like mostly some risk of hail and straight-line winds. We pick up more thunderstorm activity as we move south through South Dakota. It is a lot more disorganized. As we drop south along that frontal system, more thunderstorms in Nebraska, especially south of North Platte. And that tapers off as we get down into Colorado and Kansas. Looks a lot more elevated, virga, and looks like a lot of dry air involved in these showers. And no surprise there with that dry line pushing well out towards Wichita and Salina. There is some pooled moisture back behind the front. You can see the dew points in the 70s and 60s, but it does taper off as you go to the west. 57 at Burlington and down to 44 around La Junta. And we drop south into Albuquerque and New Mexico. Not much going on at this hour. Looks like anything that we had earlier during the day has mostly dissipated. And going down to Tucson, some thunderstorms in the area. Looks like a good cluster there around San Simon, and this is going to be just southeast of Tucson, other cells west of Phoenix. And looks like a pretty good batch of activity there south of Nogales. And we continue our tour by heading north. We get right into that polar high in Alberta. However, the temperatures on the west and north side, fairly mild. Most of the cold air is stacked down in the southeastern part of that high. At this hour, almost 80 degrees at Fort Nelson, 75 in the interior regions. Not particularly hot, but it is certainly summer-like, and we get into more of that up there in Alaska and Yukon. Most of the polar air is held back in the Northwest Territories and north of the North Slope, but even up there around Dead Horse, 52 at this hour. The colder polar air is confined mostly to the eastern Arctic. That's going to be the core right there north of Baffin Island, between there and Thule Air Force Base. Some cold air down the coast of Greenland, 40s, and we pick up a little bit of snow there just north of Iqaluit. And even some 30s down in that region with this weather system there in northern Quebec. And circling back to the U.S., a few scattered thunderstorms through Ontario into the Winnipeg and southern Manitoba region. And that's about it as far as the surface map goes. Let's take a look at that 250 millibar upper air chart. This is North America. The current chart today looking like this. It is a zonal pattern, not very strong. Jet stream from Washington through Manitoba out towards Labrador and Quebec. And you can see the ridges running about like that, and the troughs right there in between. We do have a fairly active Hudson Bay low pattern. That's it up there. Doesn't look all that substantial right now, but you're going to see as we go through the sequence, it really builds in through Hudson Bay, Ontario, and Quebec. The pattern will be progressive over the next several days. There's the animation. Most of the stronger jet stream dynamics affecting the Dakotas and Minnesota, the Great Lakes by the 27th. Another trough heading into the northwest coast, but there it is. You can see the lower heights building in there across Hudson Bay, and that's going to be associated with more polar air generation. I do think that will affect mostly the northeastern U.S., and as we've pointed out time and time again, that's been a recurring theme. Cold in the northeast, blazing hot out west. So we're at the 28th here. We roll that forward. You can see the heights dropping, shifting around a little bit. You can see a new low get established there north of Manitoba. And eventually that drops in across Ontario, get into a very dynamic pattern across the Great Lakes by July 2nd. Now, the other side of this is going to be the subtropical ridge. Let's back that up. We need to consider that separately. So we go back to the beginning. What we see here, we really need to get in and look at these wind plots. So we follow the plots and look at how they fold around. So that points to a high pressure area over Texas. No wonder temperatures are up above 100. Meanwhile, a southerly component across Arizona and New Mexico, which helps to support that southwest monsoon pattern. And Florida, they're getting northerly flow, helping to dry things out, starting with the mid-levels, and that's given them the very strong temperature variations between day and evening. Roll that forward a little further. Let's go up to the 27th. Not much change in the patterns. Looks like upper level high across Louisiana. You can see the clockwise flow around that, and it breaks up into another high. I think that's probably a ridge there over the California coast. And then that folds up into a low right there over West Texas. So probably a little bit of an increase in thunderstorm activity in that part of the country. In Florida, the northerly flow continues. Let's look for big changes between now and July 4th. Don't really see much. Looks like the high tries to get established there over New Mexico, so that may shut down the monsoon a little bit in several days. I'm just kind of guesstimating here based on the upper air pattern. And as we get into the 1st and 2nd, what do we see here? Easterly flow in the Gulf, westerly flow in the central U.S., and that gives us a pattern kind of like that. High pressure over northeast Texas, so probably a continuation of the hot weather in the Quad State area, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. And there at the very end, look at that. I'm not sure how common that is in July. That's very strong weather system, I would think for summer. 90-knot winds flowing into San Francisco, the San Joaquin Valley. And considering that we're near the peak of solar heating, I think this points to the prospect of some enhanced severe weather prospects around the 3rd and 4th of July. May get some rare tornadoes in that part of the country. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Meanwhile, in the plains, look at that high building in right there. That means dry weather and hot conditions. Texas getting under easterly flow, that could open up the tropics a little bit, maybe a little bit of an increase in precip in the southern half of the state. And speaking of the tropics, we can't turn our back to that. We've got some new activity there, 40% chance of cyclone formation. This is pretty far south. This is similar to the track that, I don't know if you remember Ivan. I think that storm started out pretty far south. This is a very similar track heading towards Trinidad, that area. So that could carry it into the Caribbean, maybe in about 5 to 7 days. Have to watch for some activity in the Gulf, maybe after the 4th of July. Or maybe around that time. That's kind of a ways off. But anyway, this will give us something to watch. The Eastern Pacific still watching Celia heading out to sea. And some new formation there south of Mexico. Okay, let's check out our temperature records. This is a fantastic way to keep tabs on where any crazy weather is going to happen. This is tomorrow. Looking at Saturday's temperatures, near 100 once again from East Texas to Mississippi. Here's how it looks for Sunday, 102 at Shreveport, and one little lone 85 at Astoria, Oregon. Here's how the map looks on Monday, nothing. And this is how it looks on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Pretty surprising. So I think we're going to see a week of seasonable temperatures. Of course, this time of the year, precipitation is always the big wild card. Let's break it down. This is the 48-hour QPF, so we're taking a 2-day slice of precipitation, and we're just going to take it forward into the future. This is the northern stream, the polar front jet area, so that's going to be dominated by MCSs moving from the northern plains out to the Great Lakes and northeastern U.S. We also have the monsoon from Mexico up to Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado. And we've also got a lot of tropical activity showing up. We'll keep an eye on that. That's going to be associated partly with decaying stationary fronts that end up down there along the Gulf Coast. Some interaction with easterly waves with that easterly flow aloft. Let's put it all together and see what happens. You can focus in on your favorite area of the country. Looks kind of dry up there for the start of the week in the northern plains, but a lot of activity in the Four Corners area. It looks like that kind of subsides as we get into midweek, focusing mostly on New Mexico there. There it is. You can see it lightening up a little bit, but the monsoon appears to be coming back as we get into next weekend. A lot of tropical activity. Looks like maybe a little easterly wave right there. Meanwhile, a lot of frontal activity, MCSs, and linear dynamically driven systems. And look at the Gulf there around the 7th and 8th. That may be our tropical system coming into Texas. Let's check that out. Of course, that's very far in the future, so we're not going to worry too much about the exact track. That's guaranteed to be a lot different from run to run for a while. And let's see. Yep, there it is at the very end. 300 hours out, that's going to be a little tropical storm moving into Texas around the 7th or 8th. And about the only thing that we know for sure is around the 1st or 2nd week of July, somewhat enhanced risk of maybe a tropical storm, tropical depression, or maybe a hurricane somewhere on the U.S. coast or in eastern Mexico. So that'll be something to watch as we get into next week. And our time is just about up. It's already 11:03. as we record this. These productions really take a while to put together, so that's one reason I want to try to move to a live format so we don't lose time. But there it is, Minnesota MCS moving across the north part of the state, heading into Duluth maybe in a couple hours. And we do have a couple tornado warnings. This one is confirmed by law enforcement. Where is that? Park Rapids, north of Wadena. That's where they had that outbreak several weeks ago, back there in late May. I forgot the date of that. However, I have to say it would be very interesting to live up there in Minnesota and watch these summertime storms roll through. Maybe someday I'll move up there and see what it's like. Anyway, I'll get on out of here and hope you all have a great weekend. Take care, and we'll see you back here Monday for the supporters and Wednesday for everybody else. Have a great one. Bye-bye.